What's up everyone? In today's video, I'm just going to be making a tier list on every type of team in Monotype. And the reason I'm doing this is because, well, first off, it seems like an interesting format. And Kanal is hosting a Monotype tournament. And signups happen, I believe, on Saturday. I'm not sure what time. But yeah, I'll be sure to link his server in the description so that you guys can join that if you want. But yeah, I'm just going to be ranking all of these. So without further ado, I think it's first best off to start with, the best, water. I think water is undoubtedly the very best monotype, and it's just so versatile. It has so many different options, and it has a lot of defensive options too, like things that would normally threaten it, like electric can be dealt with, like Malomurk. Like it just has a lot of. It has very good defensive mons as well as offensive ones because you have Garlash and Deldrix, and I think Garlash is one of the most threatening Loomians in Monotype, considering that barely anything can deal with it. The only types that really stand a chance versus it are like Ancient and Steel, but even those, it could just run Barter Boots and then they're screwed. So overall, Water is just very powerful. It has very few bad matchups. Toxic is definitely a bad matchup, although that is definitely more anti-meta than not. Even Electric, I'd say Water generally has the better matchup there. And yeah, overall, Water is it's just a great type, and I think it's definitely the best. Yeah, so let's see. Let's go with Metal next. I think that Metal's good. But one of my problems with Metal is that, like, it just loses to water so badly. Like, I feel like most of the time you lose to water, I mean, maybe you can beat it, but, like, at the same time, it's like, it just kind of struggles a little bit. So, yeah, it does have some good matchups. Like, it matches pretty well into Ancient, which is probably pretty good, but, like, it loses to other pretty good types, like Fire. I mean, I guess you do well versus Mind. Maybe I'll move it up to Great. I don't know. I'll see how I feel later. But yeah. Next up, let's see. Let's do Fire. I think Fire is a great type. You have pretty solid matchups across the board. Your weakest is, I wouldn't say that Fire truly has a bad matchup, because I think every matchup is at least decent for Fire. Even Water, it's like not terrible. You still do pretty well, and you sit on Steel. You do very well versus Ancient, even though, they resist your attacks, but I still think that overall, Fire is just a great type, and I think it's good for its ability to have, like, a lot of good matchups, but also, like, not having any bad ones, because nothing truly threatens Fire. Air is the closest to a worst matchup, but, like, even then, you can just run Pyrelin, and that is a pretty good, it's pretty good on air, and there's ways to get around, air. So overall, Fire is, I'd say it's pretty. I like Fire a lot. I think it's great. And yeah, let's see, Brawler, it's decent. I mean, I want to put in good, but, like, it's kind of hard to, considering the fact that it just isn't very strong. It has power behind it, but you don't have any defensive utility, and that's, like, a huge problem. Because, something like, Mind is gonna blow you over. Um, I think Water has a pretty good matchup versus you, although they do have to worry about Tata, but even then. Actually, no, they have Hard Blast, which just kind of sits on you. So yeah, Brawler doesn't have a good matchup versus Water. It does beat Metal, which is fine, but, like, other things can also beat Metal, so it's not that great. It's not, like, awful, because, it's still decent, but, like, it's just not that amazing, because it just doesn't have. It's not able to break through what would normally counter Brawler, which is, like, its main issue, because Air just blitzes through it, every type that beats it, it counters it, right? And that's, like, a problem. Because with the other types, right, Fire, even though, Air technically beats it, Fire can still, like, beat the Air matchup. and something like Earth, just, we'll get to Earth after, but, yeah. So yeah, Brawler, it's alright, but not that great. Speaking of Earth, it's bad. You lose to water, you lose to fire, because of Chartiki. You beat metal, I guess, and electric, but, like, those are kind of... Metal isn't that amazing, and electric is kind of... I'd say electric is pretty bad overall, but, Earth, I just feel like it's way too weak to water and way too weak to other top-tier typings to make it really that useful. So, yeah, it's fine, but, like, it's not, like, that amazing. Next up, let's go with air. I think air is really good in this meta. You have very good matchups versus most things. You have a strong matchup into water, which is pretty helpful, and you deal with fire. Metal might be a bit of a problem for you, but I feel like even then you have ways to get around it. But overall, I like air for its ability to sort of match up well into these top tier types. And I think that's where the majority of its strength comes from. Again, there are, like, most of its weaker matchups are, like, low tier. Like, you struggle versus ice, but I don't think ice is very good. You struggle versus electric, which is fine. You might struggle with metal, but I think you could probably win that matchup too. So it's not like, you auto lose if you fight metal. And yeah, overall, air just has a really good matchup, especially versus top tier picks. And yeah, that's why I think it's, where it is. So yeah, next, I think, let's go with Spirit. I think Spirit's good. It has some good defensive Loomians, like Harvesect is able to deal with a ton. It's really beneficial to, Spirit Monotype teams. As well the fact that you have things like Vesperatu, which are very, very scary. And, most importantly, you have Boonary, which is huge, to make sure things aren't able to set up on you. Because Boonary and Monotype is pretty good, it's able to help you out with your bad matchups, like, a lot. And yeah, I think Spirit is good. It does have some good options, but, like, it's not amazing because it doesn't have too many, like, strong matchups, I'd say. You do okay with versus water, you do okay versus fire, you do okay versus air, but, like, apart from these okay matchups, you're not, like, amazing. So yeah, I'd say it's good. It's just solid overall. And yeah, next up, let's do Mind. I think Mind is very strong. Since Mind type attackers overall are just good in general, and it has some pretty good matchups, like, it does go well into fire, it goes well into air too, so it does have those matchups, but its only problem is it does struggle a bit versus water, considering something like Scarf Garlash or, like, Deludrax just kind of destroys it, which is a problem, but I'd say it does have some good matchups that make it worth using just because of how powerful it is and the utility that certain mons like Pharaoh or Meditoad provide. And yeah, so I'd say it's pretty good overall. Let's see. Next up, Electric. It's bad. I know there's a lot of variety. There's a good amount of electric mons, but, like, the problem is you just lose to certain types. Like, you can't beat metal, which is a problem. Probably struggle versus fire, because, like, what's stopping Ikazune from just clicking Flash and Flee, or whatever its moves are. And, I mean, electric is, maybe it's decent. Maybe bad is a bit too harsh, because its matchups aren't awful. Yeah, I think I'll put in decent, because it's not, like, it's not horrible, but, like, it's just not good. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could justify it because it beats air, which is pretty useful. You're not awful versus water, you're not awful versus fire, you know? You do auto lose to metal because of Tyrex, which is a problem. But yeah, I'd say electric is pretty decent, but I don't really like it that much. Ancient, I think it's good. I would put it higher, but, like, in theory, it's a good anti-water pick, but they just slap on Luminami, and then, Ancient is not so good anymore. I think that's the biggest problem with Mono Ancient. It's just, like Luminami existing. Because without it, I think it'd be great, but just because that one thing that prevents it from being good anti-water just, holds it back a lot. And while it does have some pretty decent matchups versus something like Fire, Air, and you do alright versus these two, um, Ancient, it's good, but, like, it's just not amazing. I feel like being weak to Luminami definitely holds it back a lot. And yeah, next up, let's do Light. It's fine. I guess you have something like Valkyrie and Luxor could probably do things, but, you have a bad matchup versus Water, which is really bad for you. Um, you probably do okay versus Fire, but even then, I think Fire has a good matchup versus you. You probably do okay versus Air, but, like, overall, you just don't really have many good matchups. So yeah, I don't think it's awful like Earth is, because like Earth just loses to everything. So yeah, I think that Light is okay. That's just it. Uh, let's see. Dark. I think that Dark is good. Um, let's see. Dark. It has things like Vesperati, Historical Barbs, which are very good. You're basically guaranteeing barbs against anything that isn't air or metal, and I think those are probably your weakest matchups. But even then, you have Vesperatu, which is always able to, do something at least. But I feel like Dark, it's powerful, but the problem with Dark is you just don't have much defensive utility, which does hold you back, considering you're not going to be able to deal with all the threats too well. So yeah, Dark, it's fine. I think it's pretty good, but it's not like amazing or anything. So yeah, Plant, it's decent. Actually, maybe I'll move Plant up. It does have some okay matchups. I think I'll lower it back down. You don't really have that many good matchups. You know, you don't even really beat Water because Dark type attackers. But yeah, you lose to Fire, probably lose to Air. Um, I guess you do well versus Metal, but like I feel like if you want to be good in Monotype, you need to at least be able to beat these three types. To at least have a solid, typing. Because otherwise, you're gonna struggle a lot, considering because these types are just so good. And yeah, um, Ice, it's decent. I mean, would I ever use Ice? Loses to Water. Um, loses to Fire. Beats Air, so I guess that's something. Although it does have some decent traits, but I feel like Ice is just not worth it. Actually, speaking of which, I think Light is just bad. I've been thinking about it, and like nothing, it's not worth it for anything. You know, it it loses to this, and this, and you just aren't very good. Yeah, I'd say it's on Earth's level, just because you don't really have any use. I don't think it's that great. So yeah, um, Bug, uh, it's decent, but like, I mean, I can see someone using it because it's not like awful, but at the same time, it's it's just not that great. But you aren't awful considering you don't exactly have the worst matchup versus Water or like the worst matchup versus Fire. You just auto lose to Air, and like, you don't really have any truly amazing matchups. But I guess nothing's really that bad for you besides Air. But yeah, I'd say it's decent. I don't think it's exactly bad. So yeah, Toxic. I want it. I'll put in good. I want to put in decent because like it's not that amazing. But like the thing about Toxic is that you have a good matchup versus Water, which is huge, and you have a good, I'd say a good matchup, not like amazing, but like a decent matchup versus Fire, and well, you do lose to Air, which is a big problem. But like I think these two matchups make it worth using, and you do lose to Metal because of Tyrex, which does kind of suck, but Overall, I think Toxic isn't that horrible. It's not that great, but like I think it's pretty good. You know, being good versus fire and water definitely makes it worth using in my eyes. So yeah, and last, definitely least, I'm gonna add Sunro. Um, there we go. Typeless. And so Typeless is just bad. You know, it's sorry for that. Yeah, it's just not good. You know, I should probably make that visible. There. Yeah. So Typeless, it loses to everything. You don't even have enough fully evolved mons. I don't think so, at least. So yeah, it's basically unviable. It's the only one I think that you can never win with. You know, against like a good team or player. So yeah, yes, these are my monotype rankings. You know, obviously I haven't looked into everything too much, but I do feel like these are definitely very good types. I think that all these types that I put into the good tier can have some use. The decent ones, I personally wouldn't use them, but if you wanted to, I think they can find success. I don't really think these two can. I think that more often than not, you're just gonna lose with these types in the bad tier, but they're not horrible. And Typeless is just Typeless. Never use it. You know, as tempting as it is to, hey, maybe you could win, but you won't. You just can't because you have too many bad matchups. And yeah, it's the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and make sure to like and subscribe for more videos because I'll definitely be posting them. And yeah, make sure to sign up for the tournament if you're interested. Once again, Kanal's Discord server will be linked in the description. And yeah, until next time, see ya.